Hey guys, it's Candy. Welcome back to Our Family Nest. So today I want to share with you guys all the 5-star books that I have read so far in 2022. As I was looking through my Goodreads account, which you can follow me with the link down in the description or search for Candy, Our Family Nest, I noticed that majority of the 5-star books that I read are all pretty popular among Book Talk, Bookstagram, and even here on YouTube. So I feel like none of my 5-star reviews are going to be like super shocking. However, I highly recommend all of these books. I feel like I'm pretty like stingy on giving 5 stars to a book. I have to really like it. So far in 2022, I have read 34 books and only 12 of them have been 5-star. So I would say that's a pretty good ratio. So here is my stack, plus I have 3 books on my Kindle that I'm gonna share as well. So let's jump right in. So the first book I read in 2022, and also my first 5-star read for this video, is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I feel like a lot of people have read this book this year, maybe even last year. Obviously, this book is about Evelyn Hugo. She is a Hollywood icon, a famous actress, and she wants someone to write the story of her life. So she chooses this magazine reporter, Monique, to interview her, to get to know her life all the way back from the 1950s through the 80s, where she was married 7 different times. You learn all about her life and her 7 different husbands. And it's a really interesting life. It's almost kind of like a true Hollywood story, like if you want to know the behind the scenes of like a famous Hollywood actress. Where the real storyline comes in is, why did she pick Monique? And as you're reading the story the whole entire time, you're just trying to figure out, why would she pick her? She could have picked anyone. And that's, I think, what really blows this off the charts and makes it a 5-star plus book. Beautiful the way it all plays out. Next up is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. So I am new to Colleen Hoover books. However, I consider myself a big fan, which is kind of ironic because I've really only read 2 of her books, sort of 3. So I read Verity on my Kindle. Amazing book, loved it. It's a thriller, highly recommend if you like thrillers. Then I read Reminders of Him, and a long time ago I read It Ends With Us, but I don't remember it. And since there is a sequel coming out later this year, I am going to reread that book. And then if you see back here on my bookshelves, I recently purchased Ugly Love, which I think is a lot of Colleen Hoover fans, one of their favorites. And you guys comment down below if you're a Colleen Hoover fan, like, what are your favorites? Like, which one should I read next? I feel like I could totally spend the rest of this year reading her books, but there are so many other good books out there, I have a hard time deciding which ones to read next. So Reminders of Him, I wouldn't really consider it necessarily a romance book. It's more of just kind of like literary fiction, and it is just a gut-wrenching book. There's so much emotion in this book. The book's about Kenna, who's just spent 5 years in prison for a tragic mistake, and basically she gets out of prison and the only thing she cares about is meeting her 4-year-old daughter. So if you do the math on that, she actually had her daughter while she was in prison. So you learn all about why she was in prison. You learn about the other people involved with her daughter, like who's taking care of her daughter, what is her relationship like with those people. And it ends up pretty much everyone's trying to prevent her from having a relationship with her daughter. And it's just really sad. So she ends up meeting this guy where there is a little bit of romance mixed in there then. And this guy ends up trying to help her have a relationship with her daughter. However, he's kind of connected to the story in a really unusual way. It's really good. When you start reading it, you're not going to be able to put it down. So start it on a Saturday morning and just plan on reading the whole entire weekend. Okay, next up is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I actually read this book on my Kindle and I blew through it so fast. It's such a cute story. This book actually has this new cover released in paperback that if you love paperback books like me, I recommend picking this one up because This cover is just gorgeous. So Christina Lauren, if you don't know, are actually two different women, two different authors that co-write together. And this book, like many of their books, goes back and forth between present time and when the main character was in high school. So it was 11 years ago when Macy first met Elliot, and they had this beautiful friendship that began to blossom into a little bit more, but something happened where Elliot broke her heart all those years ago and they lost touch. Now that their lives have intertwined once again, Macy's engaged, about to be married, and she has a fiance, but all of a sudden when she sees Elliot, all these feelings come flooding back. So as you're reading, you're learning about their past relationship, you're learning about their present relationship. She ends up introducing him to her fiance, and just like all this crazy stuff happens, and you're just dying to figure out, like, why did they cut ties 11 years ago? And it all plays out just perfectly. It's an amazing, beautiful story. Absolutely loved it. And a lot of people were comparing this to Every Summer After, so if you happen to read that book, check this book out. You'll really like it. I can understand why people think that they're similar, but they're not similar in the way that, like, oh, you won't enjoy the other book because you've already read something so similar. They're two very different stories. Okay, the next 5-star book I read in 2022 was also on my Kindle, and it was Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. If you've read any of Jennifer's books before, she writes amazing thrillers. They really push the limits. They're usually a little gory, super intense, edge of your seat, page turners. Every single one of her books that I've read super fast. If you haven't read Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier, that was my favorite book of 2021, so I highly recommend that one. Jar of Hearts is just as good. I will say, disclaimer, this book is a little bit intense. If you don't like a little bit of like there's this scene that takes place in a prison that's pretty descriptive of how a person gets killed, and it's like, wow, that's intense. I enjoyed it, but just a disclaimer if that's not your thing. For some reason, my memory is like going a little blank on this one. I did write a review for this book on Goodreads, and I wrote, the story is about Georgina Shaw, who witnessed her boyfriend kill her best friend back when they were in high school, but kept it a secret from everyone. 14 years later, when the body is found, Gio ends up taking a plea deal to help put her now serial killer ex-boyfriend behind bars. She also ends up having to serve a short sentence, and that's when all the real chilling moments begin, from her horrible experiences in jail and the trauma of her past haunting her daily. Gio's life is full of dark moments that she may never recover from. Even when she gets out of prison, you almost feel like she was safer in jail. It's dark, it's frightening, and everything that you think happened is way worse than you think. The story unfolds of what really occurred all those years ago, and new murders begin to take place. You wonder who the real serial killer is, and you will probably be wrong. The next book that I read was The Night Shift by Alex Finley. I've never heard of this author. I'm not even sure if he has other books. Wait, no, I know he has other books because I remember looking on the inside like, ooh, I really like this book. Oh, he has just one other book, Every Last Fear. This is a thriller. It's very interesting. It's definitely like a mystery where you're trying to figure things out as you're reading. It's basically about back in 1999, these 4 girls were working at a Blockbuster, and all but one of them were murdered, and one of the girls' boyfriends has gone missing, never to be found. 15 years later, a very similar murder occurs. This time they're at an ice cream parlor, and again, one girl survived, and that survivor only will speak to the survivor of the Blockbuster murders. So all of the characters in this story are really interesting, from the lives of the 2 survivors that kind of get to know one another. There's this FBI agent who's pregnant with twins. She's just a total badass. Like, I want to be her when I grow up. It's just a really good book. Definitely one of those mysteries where you're just trying to figure it out. And if you're like me, I had it all wrong. The next 5-star book is Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. Probably not saying that right, but this book was very different. Definitely literary fiction. So the book takes place back in the 70s, which just makes it super cute. Like, they actually have phones on the wall. And 14-year-old Mary Jane becomes the nanny for this family that the mother's a little crazy, chaotic, messy. The father is a physician, and it ends up that this famous actress and this rock star that are married come to stay at the house as well, because the actor, he's a drug addict, sex addict, and the doctor wants to spend 24/7 with him to help make him become a better person, basically. So Mary Jane's life just changes drastically. She just becomes part of this life that she didn't even know existed. She lives a very kind of structured, boring life with her mom and dad with like a ton of rules. So being in this household with all of these people, it's just like a whole different world for her. And it's just really interesting, cute. There's emotional parts, relationships that develop among all the characters. This is a really good book because it's just so different than most books that I read. Next up is Philly Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. And this was this really cute, kind of fun read. It is about this single mom who is just down on her luck. She's supposed to be working on writing a novel. That's not working out for her. She doesn't have a dime to her name, can't even make her car payment. Her ex-husband's a jerk, he cheated on her. So she's in this restaurant and she's talking to her agent, talking about a book, but this other lady overhears her and thinks that she's like a hitman. So this lady ends up offering her this huge amount of money to basically kill her husband. So it's like funny, but like there's all this crime involved. It's chaotic. She's trying to like take care of her 2 little kids. And then she just becomes entangled in this like murder investigation, falls for the cop. I mean, it's all over the place, but it's just a really good, funny story. So this is part 1 of a series. So far, just book 2 is out. I don't know if there's going to be a book 3. Book 2, I did not like at all. I could barely even finish it. I was like skipping chapters just to get it over with because I just felt it was like a regurgitation of book 1. And there was no further like character development in the story at all. And I just didn't get the point of it, honestly. Next book that I read is The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth. And I read this pretty much in like one day at a dance competition. So obviously it's about 2 sisters, Fern and Rose. So Fern, she's a librarian. She's a little bit different. I wouldn't necessarily call her like disabled, but she leads a very different life than most people. She gets up, she has her breakfast at the same time every day. She goes to work, she doesn't socialize, she barely even talks to anybody at work. Part of her routine throughout the week is having dinner with her sister 3 nights a week. So I take it back. I don't really think anything's wrong with her. She's just one of those people that has like severe social anxiety. She can't be in crowds, bright lights, loud noises, any of that. So her sister Rose discovers that she can't get pregnant. So it ends up that she tells Fern, well, you could have a baby for me. And Fern, who literally would do anything for her sister, was like, why not? I would do anything for Rose. Why not get pregnant? So she ends up getting into a relationship with a man that's a really cute relationship, ends up getting pregnant, but hides it from him. Also, she can have this baby for her sister. But the way everything starts to unfold, it becomes like really eerie. It's like, what is happening? So this cute, like loving story ends up turning into a really tragic story. And it's just really shocking because I guarantee this is one of those books that you're reading it and you're like, stuff like this happens in real life. Like, people are weird. This book will leave you speechless, put it that way. Okay, the next book that I read that I really loved was The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. Is actually book 1 of a 3-book series, and I have the other books here as well. I will say book 1, 5 stars. Book 2, 5 stars. Book 3, it's still really, really good, like way better than a lot of the books that I've read so far this year. However, I just didn't love it as much as the other 2, but maybe I just had like super, super high expectations. Anyways, I only gave this one 4 stars. The thing is though, is out of all the books that I'm sharing with you today, I highly, highly recommend the series, especially for summer reads. They would be perfect for summertime. Do you have to read them in order, or do you necessarily have to read all of them? No, you don't, because each book has different main characters. They're also a little bit spicy, if you like that. Spicy meaning some kind of descriptive romance. I wouldn't put it at like, I'd give it a barely rated R. They're just really cute romance books. This first one, the main character Kristen has some health problems, and that is preventing her from ever wanting to fall in love. She doesn't want to ever get married and have to have her significant other deal with the fact that she has these medical problems that are going to affect her for the rest of her life. So she's planning her best friend's wedding when she meets the best man, Josh. And Josh is just stinking adorable. I love these books because the writer just does such an amazing job of making you fall in love with the male characters. They're hot, they're sensitive, they're funny. I mean, they're just like the perfect guy. And even Kristen's dog likes Josh. So Kristen spends so much time trying to fight off Josh because of her medical problem and the fact that Josh wants to get married and have this big family, and she's not going to be able to give that to him. And their banter as the relationship builds and just keeps getting hotter and hotter is just so cute. Lots of laughs, lots of tears, and I really wish I could just read this book again for the first time. Now, the second one, which is my favorite, oh my God, this book is so good. It's about Kristen's friend, Sloane, and she loses her fiance. So this is all about her story of moving on, dealing with grief. Will she ever date again? Yes, she will. And then she finds Tucker, a dog. Ends up finding out that Tucker's owner is Jason, this super hot up and coming musician. It starts out with all these like flirty phone conversations and texts. And so while Sloane is still dealing with heartbreak and Jason's music career is on the rise, and Sloane is left with trying to figure out, is she ready to date? Is she over her fiance? And like, is this the right guy for her? Just such a good story, and it is hot. Woo, spicy. Next up, fellow readers, is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This book is all over Bookstagram. Not sure about Book Talk, but I'm sure it's there too. First book this author has ever written, and boy, is she getting a lot of attention with this book. I'm happy for her. This is a really, really well-written debut novel, and the cover is the absolute cutest. Like, buy it just for the cover because it'll look cute on your bookshelf. So again, similar to Love in Other Words, because it goes back and forth between past and present time. Percy, the female character, reconnects with an ex-love interest named Sam. Years ago, they spent 6 summers together. Percy worked at Sam's family restaurant. They spent their afternoons on their lake, and they built this beautiful friendship that blossomed into a romantic relationship. But of course, there were decisions that were made in the past that affected their future, kind of ended their relationship. They lost touch with each other, and now their lives are brought back together. And what will happen? How will it play out? Are there still feelings between the two of them? Or has one or both of them moved on with other relationships? Maybe they're just gonna be friends. Like, what's gonna happen? I love stories like this. I know there's like a phrase everybody uses, rekindled romance. I don't know. I read this in one evening. Started it at 9 p.m. I think I read till like almost 1 a.m. Couldn't put it down. Best book of the summer so far. Okay, my last 5-star read is another book by Christina Lauren. Christina Lauren has a lot of really good, I call them rom-com type books. However, this one, Something Wilder, was a little bit different. This kind of had like a mystery component. There were like puzzles that you had to solve. They were on like this treasure hunt. It was just, it had some romance mixed in, don't get me wrong, but there was a lot more to this book than just romance. So the story is about this girl, Lily. Her father, Duke, was like this famous treasure hunter. He's passed away, but Duke left behind this notebook of like hand-drawn maps that she uses them to take people on these like treasure hunts. But her and her friend, they kind of like hype it up. They like make up these fake games, they create these puzzles, and they make these people believe that they're hunting for treasure. So this particular group of guys comes in and they're going to go on their little treasure hunt journey. Well, it just so happens one of the guys, Leo, is actually a guy that Lily loved in the past. I think they were like teenagers when they first met. So there's like this rekindled romance thing going on between the two of them. Then out of nowhere, the trip goes horribly wrong. One person brought a gun and all this other stuff they weren't supposed to bring. And then they were there because they were literally trying to hunt real treasure because they knew that Lily was the daughter of this famous treasure hunter. And they thought they were gonna find this real treasure worth tons of money. Somewhere along the trip, additional characters come into play and it's just like chaos. And like every 10 pages, something crazy was happening. Just totally unexpected. So it was a little different than most normal Christina Lauren books, but it was really good. It was like a nice change of pace from just like a normal romantic comedy. It actually had some really fun elements to it that made it really interesting. So guys, that's it. That's the 12 5-star books that I've read so far this year. And I'm actually doing you guys a little bit of a favor here. Take note of my stack, excluding the Kindle books because that would be impossible. I just put these books in order of how much I recommend them to you. What would I read first? Reminders of Him. Happily Ever After, I know it's book 2 of the series, but it's just my favorite. This is how much I love these books. In terms of recommendations, this is how much I love them. This is the order that I recommend them. Because I know not everybody reads as many books per year as I've been reading lately. All right guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please comment down below what other book videos you would like me to make. I was going to do a reading for 24 hours. I tried to do that a couple weeks ago and apparently I was doing it all wrong. I was pausing the clock every time I had to like go do something, eat, go to the bathroom, etc. And I guess you're not supposed to do that. So I just need to start over and do it correctly this time. I don't know if I should start doing like every month. Like these are the books that I read for the month of June. Like would you guys like to see one of those every month and I'll just review the books that I read for the month, whether they're good or bad, while I'll share like why I recommend them or why I don't recommend them. Let me know in the comments below what you guys would like to see from me in terms of book videos. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.